Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory, and if you're watching this channel and you're new here, well, you're watching Varietal Literature's YouTube page. We do basically two things in a week. We do a live stream about folklore, which we do on Tuesdays, and we do a live stream where I play an indie tabletop RPG, and that's what we're doing tonight. I mean, it doesn't have to be indie, but it just always ends up being that way. Specifically, we're playing one tonight where we'll take on the role of a cat who goes around and collects stories and then tries to pitch them to their owner for a socialite tabloid type paper, and then we'll write a little article out of it based on the prompts we get. I'll explain it in more detail as we get going, but if you don't care about the rules of the game and you just want to know what we come up with, well, down in the descriptions below, if you're not watching it live, there will be timestamps, and they take you to key parts of the show, so you can just jump in wherever it is that most interests you. If you are here live, though, good news, because you are going to witness the glory of our live chat. In fact, science says it is considered more valuable than life itself. I don't understand how that works, but, you know, I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. And in that wonderful lifeblood of the internet that is my live chat, there is Witchery, who says, "Salutations, friends, Romans, countrymen, catfolk." And Uncle Kitty returns and says, "Kitties!" Unsurprisingly, their favorite topic. There's a clue in the name. GS likes the art. Yeah, actually, I'll fully admit that the art was part of the reason I chose this game. I was bouncing around about 5 different options today. And Jumpstore says, "Hey everyone." Hello, Jumpstore. And Zombie Wolf, being ever so kind, asks if you're feeling any better, Rory. I'm about the same. I still have a cough. I think you can still hear some congestion. I don't know if it will ever go away. Maybe this is just my life now. Still no signs of infection, no fever. My blood ox levels are normal. It's just this persistent cough. But thank you for asking. And thank you everybody who is in the chat for watching. Jumpstore says, "Here for the kitties." All right. Well then, why should I waste your time any further? I will simply explain the game. This part of the show is called Lit Games. It is the show. Lit Games stands for literature games, but there's tons of names for them. Lyric games, solo tabletop RPGs, journaling games, so on and so forth. You primarily find them in places like itch.io, and they are essentially prompt structures that are a little bit gamified so that you can come up with stuff. And what we do on this stream is we focus on trying to write something within about an hour and a half, with contributions from the live chat. So if you want to join in there, you can give some contributions there. And contributions from the live chat, the structure of the game, so on. But the game that we're doing tonight is called Cats Know Things. Cats Know Things. Its byline is a perfectly scandalous solo journaling RPG, and it does have absolutely lovely art. Kudos to the author on the art. Whether they commissioned it or whether they did it themselves, I assume it's commissioned. Either way, well chosen. The Cats Know Things is a reference to the fact that we are going to be a cat, and in this world, this cat can somehow communicate with their owner. Their owner sort of runs a social page. I think they're like a social paper is another term for it, but what I think most people in the West would know as a tabloid, a social gossip kind of page. And Witchery says, "It still cracks me up that itch.io is, they are mostly to host video games, but tabletop RPG who were like, what if?" Yeah. We didn't want to be on DM's Guild any longer. Zombie Wolf says it reminds them of the book, and that's probably intentional because, as it says right here, the game is inspired by Natsume Soseki's "I Am a Cat" or "Wakahai wa Neko de Aru." a satirical novel about Japanese society from the point of view of a cat. It also has inspirations from Bridgerton television show and book series by Julie Quinn. I haven't read any of those. So if you're tuning in to watch somebody ape the style, I don't know. So I'm just going to read the text because I think the explanation that they give in this is pretty good. I'm going to give, it's pretty basic mechanics. You need a D10 and a D6 and something to write with. But, of course, if you don't have the dice, although I can't imagine a world where you don't have a D10 and a D6 and you're playing indie RPGs off of itch.io. I feel like you got to be pretty deep in the sauce to be doing this stuff. And what that means, you probably have a full set. But if you don't, you can certainly get rollers online if you want to play this yourself. And again, this is a game from Solo But Not Alone 4, which is where a lot of our games are going to come from, which is a bundle deal on itch.io that's up right now. And you can get this and a bunch of games for like $10. With the proceeds going towards a charity to do with gaming and depression. And I forget the name of it, and I'm not pulling it up right now. But anyways, you need a D6 and a D10. You're going to primarily use the D6 to just basically get prompts. So it says, welcome to Solo Journal RPG Cats Know Things. You, that's you out in chat, are a very special feline who, through some magic you cannot explain, can communicate with your human, an individual who wishes to make their mark in society by any means necessary. I don't know if I can get the text a little larger and readable on screen. I certainly can't. You'll just have to trust me. This is what it says. The two of you decide to start a society page, a very fancy type of tabloid newspaper dedicated to a particular location. You still see these in sort of Hollywood. I don't know how much you see them elsewhere. Revealing the glitz, glamour, and inner turmoil of the town's most notable individuals. As the cat, you will travel across town using your stealth and wiles to listen in on the most intimate conversations and encounters. At the end of the day, you return to your human, relay them all the town's salacious gossip for the society page. The goal is to prepare 6 to 8 items for the newspaper before your human sends them to the presses for the week. There is a mechanic, though, that once we get our prompts and we put them together into little mini tales, if you will, we still have to take them to our owner, and our owner may not approve them, which is decided by a dice roll. That's why we need to collect a bit more. It's also why I think we're only going to get one article done. So, yeah. Tammy is here. Hello, Tammy. Thank you for watching. Got a late start, but I'm here now. You can saunter in whenever you feel fit. And Janera is here. It's always good to see you, Janera. Thank you for watching. Wait, can the cat speak like a person? If they can, only to their owner. Yeah, so we're going to do sort of little mini tales, like more premises. And then I think this isn't really explicitly in the design as far as I can tell, but then what I'm going to do is whatever prompt gets put through our owner, we'll actually try to write a little society article. As always, we will be using prompt structures in the game, but if you out in chat have a very strong feeling about what something should be, you can throw that idea in the mix and I will try to incorporate it. Tammy says, looks like you still need a cup of hot lemon and honey water, Rory. Yeah, I need a vacuum in my lungs. What do you need? We have all we need. I do want to, just before I move into the mechanics proper here, I want to show you some of the pictures in this thing. It is just adorable little cat pictures. There's one in particular. Kitty there. This one in particular. The two kitties dragging their claws down the side of the rolling table. Oh, that's so cute. That would make a cute shirt if you made it look like it was ripping the shirt. There's a little kitty watching you. And then there's one more, which is a little chubby kitty down at the bottom here that I just love. This is by far my favorite. A little fat butt. Anyways, it also seems like a fun game, but the art goes a long way with me. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is make a character, or in this case, a cat. So to pick our cat breed, unless you have a really strong opinion about a cat breed, I'm going to roll a d10. We get a 7. And a 7 is a Bombay cat, which is effectively what Smudge is. We think Smudge is also part Siamese, but by all appearances, he's a Bombay cat. Bombay cats, if you don't know, are black cats with sort of golden eyes, as they say, but yellow eyes to most people. Jumpstore says, my cats used to climb up my pant legs as kittens. Yeah, they're nimble as cats. First time I took Smudge to the vet, he was like 2 months old or something like that. He crawled up my shirt. He jumped down on the floor and we were trying to corner him. And he crawled up my pants, up the back of my shirt, and on top of my head. Okay, so we are a Bombay cat. And now here comes the question that I feel like chat has been waiting their entire lives to answer. What's its name? Well, you think about the name of our little Bombay cat. And it can't be Smudge because this cat's got to be smart. And as much as I love my baby boy, he is a dumb cat. And I just cannot picture a world where he would even notice gossip. But the other thing we need to do is figure out why we do it. This is something that comes from the game, but it is a good question to ask. Are we doing it out of just curiosity? Are we doing it to bring down the elite socialites down to the level of the defamed cat? What do we want to do? So think about why you want to do it, which might inform what name you want to go with. I haven't even looked at the chat yet, and I know there's probably about 5 or 6 recommendations. Like, I feel like I am correct. Mr. Tibbles, Fudge, Ember, another vote for Mr. Tibbles, Coco, Demon. That's a tough call. I've rarely get so many recommendations. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna roll a d6. And I rolled the one thing I don't have assigned to it, which is a 6. Because we had 5 names. Well, I mean, there's 2 votes for Mr. Tibbles. Oh god, they're all good. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take all the names down, and if other cats come into play, we will use them for those. Merlin. Fudge. Ember. Coco. And Merlin. Oh no, I already put Merlin down. What did I miss then? Mr. Tibbles. Well, Mr. Tibbles was the first one up. So we'll go with Mr. Tibbles. Demeter. Everyone's got a... Okay, we'll go with Mr. Tibbles. I'll try to work in other cats. We'll come back to this incredible well of names for cats. It's funny because sometimes I ask for names for people in the stream and it's like, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 cats. Everyone's on it. For the sake of it, because we know this is going to happen, what's the cutesy nicknames that Tibbles owners might have given him or her? I mean, it says Mr. Tibbles, but we're pretty nutty about how we name cats. Tib-Tib. Tibaloo. Tiboo-boo. Give me some of the nonsense names that the owner uses for the cat. And then the other thing we have to figure out is, why is this cat doing this socialite page? What is the cat motivation? Is the cat a little anarchist looking to tear down the structures? Janera says, I love the Cats musical, so she and her brother were named after characters they resembled. Lol. I like the music from the Cats musical. I will leave it at that. Tibbs, TT, Ibbles, Tibbums, Tibby Bums. Okay. This could just be the whole stream. I get the best engagement I've ever had. Those. Uncle Kitty says, I have never seen Cats. You know, I could summarize the plot for you, and I don't think you would believe me. It's just very strange, the direction it chooses to go for a play about cats. I think for some people that's its strength, for sure. Tibmeister Tibbit. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna draw my back. Hopefully the network isn't messing up. Just making sure my connection is stable before I carry on. Because, yeah. But anyways, it's wonderful dance and it's wonderful music. I mean, that's what you go to a musical for. I think that's part of the reason it didn't transfer well to film. Because some of it is casting for sure, but I think part of what didn't transfer is it's Cats is about the spectacle, right? And if you don't have that spectacle, its flaws are a little more apparent. Okay. Witcher says, I can see you again. You're not glitching now. Perfect. All right. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. Maybe it's something about the old computer. Why do we do it? I'm just going to assign it because nobody seems to be too worried about the motivations. So I'm going to say, bring the snobs down to the kitties level where they belong. Witchery says, no, the CGI being Nightmare Fuel is why it didn't translate. It definitely didn't help. I'll agree with that. Owner's name. Who wants to be the owner of Mr. Tibbles? The Bombay cat who wants to bring down the snobs, or a little punk kitty. I mean, you don't have to volunteer. You can just give me a name. I am drinking tea. What's your favorite kind of tea? I am a basic person about when it comes to tea, which is strange because I'm not really basic about a lot of other things to do with food, and I like Earl Grey. My father used to drink a lot of Earl Grey, so maybe that had an influence. But I am a weirdo about coffee. I have expensive accessories and spend time making it every morning. And I'm a weirdo about food. Many weird devices in the kitchen for food. GS says Waldo. Waldo Fig Water. Oh, Zombie Wolf says, I feel like my cats call me the can opener. I see what you're saying. Oh, that's very funny. Okay. Let's do a little warm up here. So we get to know our character. If there's any sort of traits or features you want to throw on Mr. Tibbles and have sort of introduced as a part of his personality or anything, let me know in the chat while I write this little bit here. As always, it's collaborative. The morning was late to light the day so far as Mr. Tibbles was concerned. For he was awake and yet The dawn had not fully broken. This delay in the cosmic calendar of the galaxy was delaying his breakfast. Because, of course, his owner, Waldo, his owner, Waldo Figwater, did not wake up until the sun had at least mostly risen. Genera says I at least have the title of bed as well. Yeah, Smudge likes to use me as a space heater for sure. I've mentioned this before, and I accredit it to the fact that I'm primarily Norwegian and Scottish in descent. Not just Scottish, but like Orkney Isle Scottish, which is like frozen sea. I billow heat. I am never cold. And so everybody who is cold in this household snuggles up on me and makes me hot, which I don't like. His owner, Waldo Figwater, did not wake up until the sun had at least mostly risen. With Mr. Tibbles, with 3 elegant leaps that stirred a few pots drying on the counter. Nosed through the cracked window and bellowed out a nasal wailing cry to insist that the sun increase its pace. For the neighbors, this was merely that is how you spell neighbors, actually, Google. This was, for the neighbors, this was merely the rasping and irritating cries of a portly black cat. However, for Waldo, who for reasons... It's probably a good place for an M-dash. Zombie Wolf says, I love how the kitty is portly. I don't mind a little chub on a kitty. Too much chub, though, and I worry about it, because... cats don't deal with excess fat well. It's a good way to shut down their organs. Are your cats, is it tough to keep their weight off? Smudge has stomach problems. He can't eat much, or he'll get an upset tummy, or if he eats the wrong food, it's very, very hard to find food that he can eat. There's only about 2 things he's ever been able to eat consistently. As a result, sometimes he'll just forget to eat, and we have to kind of like remind him. He's very odd in that regard. However, for Waldo, who for reasons neither Tibbles nor he ever knew, the yowling of his cat was as clear as the street marketers shouting out their morning deals below. Hey, son, I'm hungry. Pick up the pace and rise. Waldo heard Mr. Tibbles cry. Before my eldest cat died, she'd been 19 pounds. Sorry, I don't know the metric weight. That's it. I don't remember how the translation works, but it's like 8 kilos or something. But I got her down to 16 pounds, and she was not happy with her new diet. Yeah, cats are petty. That's the one thing I will say. Cats get a reputation of not being, very loyal or loving or whatever, and I don't think that's true at all. As a person who grew up with dogs, a lot of dogs, and then only had a cat older, I did actually end up preferring cats. I think they're very sweet, but what they are that dogs aren't is tremendously petty. I do not understand how an animal who can be as dumb as a cat can hang into their memories such specific little things and formulate such mean little plots to get back at you. We're talking about GMOs and organic and stuff like that, and GS says soon they'll have certifications for growing on planet Earth, which is a good observation. That's good world building if we were doing that sort of thing. Uncle Kitty said cats aren't as dumb as people think. It depends, right? Like, cats can be super dumb about some things and then wildly intelligent about other things. But yeah, they really invested in the petty stat. Zombie Wolf says, Rory, how dare you? Cats are scientifically more intelligent than a lot of animals, including dogs. It's a mixed bag. What dogs, right? Like standard poodles are like the smart as a 3-year-old or something like that. Yeah, Witchery says, just because they're dumb at people stuff doesn't mean they're not masterminds at revenge. Yeah, they're very clever. I would say cats are clever and petty. But if you merit emotional intelligence, I think that dogs have more emotional intelligence. Jumpstore says my cats were clever and petty. Okay, I'm getting myself off. Hey, son, I'm hungry. Pick up the pace and rise. Waldo knew better than to argue with Mr. Tibbles on this point. After all, yeah, Uncle Kitty says one of my last cats would put his paw on your leg, meow, and when you look down he'd walk to the door, put his paw on it, look back at you and meow. Yeah. Although to be fair, I've had my dogs do that too. It just depends on the dogs. Like some dogs I've had are very dumb. You know what's smarter than I think people get credit for? Not smarter than cats or dogs, but smarter than I think they get credit for is guinea pigs. Guinea pigs not only have tremendous amount of personality, like they're almost like humans where no one is ever like the other. Like dog breeds tend to be like their breed. They have their own little variations, but they tend to be defined by their breed. I just didn't find that with guinea pigs. The same a bit with cats. Guinea pigs are very unique in their personalities. Than to argue with Mr. Tibbles on this point. After all, his job at the... what should be the name of this tabloid? Witchery says, my rabbit is concerningly clever. I've heard this. I know a fellow who owns a ton of rabbits in Ireland, and he talks about them. We're in a server together on Discord, and he talks about how clever they can be. Zombie Wolf says, I'm realizing now our Mr. Tibbles must be an indoor-outdoor cat, and I'm horrified that people let their kitties outside. Yeah, that's rough. For me, it's just about traffic, right? It's the one thing cats are not really prepared for. I feel like they evolved to deal with a lot of threats, but not cars. Our cat's an indoor cat. Uncle Kitty says, the garden gnome. I'm assuming that's a recommendation for the paper. How about the gossiping gnome? Yeah, we have a plant on our porch called cat mint. I think it's not catnip, but it attracts cats. Doesn't drive them as nuts as catnip, but it attracts cats. And so we get all the neighborhood cats coming by, and there's a couple that we let sleep in our garage sometimes if the weather is bad, and feed them and whatnot. Yeah, Genera, mine go out on a harness too. Was dependent on the information Mr. Tibbles could feed him. By spying the upper class from windowsills. So, in a groggy sway, Waldo scooped a paste of pungent meat. Pungent paste of meat? Yeah. Pungent paste of meat into the bowl next beside Mr. Tibbles. Awaiting round golden eyes. Gia says, my first cat, Puffy, was an outdoor and I never saw him again. Aw. Puffy's a good name for a cat. Tibby Bums. Let's go with that one. worms. Eat good. Eat up. A little fluff. Waldo rasped through his dry throat and turned to make his morning coffee. Yeah, GS, I find that cats look very similar. Like, I'd like to say that I could pick Smudge out from a line of Bombay cats, but I'm not that confident. They look very similar. Okay, now we get to the game. We've introduced our relationship. So, the first part of the game is what subject are we going to try and pursue? So it says here, before offering your first society papers, you need to choose what type of topics you will cover. While it is possible to discuss just about everything of interest that notable people are doing, it could easily get overwhelming carrying around so many deep, dark secrets. We're not going to go that deep and dark. You can either choose a main focus yourself or roll a 1d6 to select a topic to focus on. Once you've decided what topics to cover as the sneaky cat, it is your job to go out into society and find print-worthy news for your human around that theme. So, our little table gives us 6 options. I'm going to roll the d6, but if you feel very strongly that our paper should cover a particular type of topic, or subject, you can let me know. So this first table, the D6, decides who's involved. Who of note is involved. So it could be an old money noble, it could be a university professor, servant of a rich family, spouse of a notable individual, whatever else. So we roll on that to figure out who the character is that we're going to generate a story about. And then we have all these tables down here, and it's things like scandalous affairs, high society fashion, the social gatherings of the rich and famous, notable romantic pairings, dark secrets. Yeah. And so we kind of are supposed to pick something to work on first. I won't assign us too hardcore to the perspective of the game here, but what I will say is, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the scandalous affair rumors, high society fashion, the social gatherings of the rich and famous, or something about potentially romantic pairings? I find myself torn between these three. I feel like I have the less to say about the notable romantic pairings, unless we pair that with Dark Secrets Uncovered. Jumpstore says it's not covering has been, so maybe it's not too trashy. We'll see how we do. I'm sure we'll trash it up because it's funny. Zombie Wolf says these are all very tabloid topics. Very much so. Why don't we start with a simple one here, the social gatherings of the rich and famous. I'm going to roll 2d6. And what it will give us is the type of social gathering, and then what we find when we get there. I'm actually going to roll the first one first, get us there, and then roll the event. Okay, the first one is a 6. It's Carnival, or a seasonal event. What seasonal event should it be? This is a social gathering of the rich and famous for a seasonal event. Oh, Zombie Wolf says an affair. We can certainly work an affair in here. Remember, our first collections are going to be short little snippets that we take back to our owner. Uncle Kitty says, wrestling. Lots of votes for an affair. Okay, we'll do an affair next. What's the special event today, though? This can be real world stuff, or you could make it up, but I don't know the ins and outs of Carnival well enough that I feel confident writing a Carnival one. Maybe like the Queen's birthday? Because it is very sort of London English in its formation. It talks about royalty and stuff like that. Jump Store says Mardi Gras. It's a good idea. You guys may have to help me a bit on the details. I know it as a parade. Okay. All the votes are for Mardi Gras. Well, Mr. Tibbles, probably going to be a busy day for you. With a smacking wet mouth full of food, Mr. Tibbles responded, "How's that? Remember, they are doing a Mardi Gras celebration this year. And well, the town's attention will be on the extravagant. This is not even close to what I typed. What happened to my keyboard? There we go. And the extravagant parade. Mr. Tibbles cut in, licking the food from his paw. Our attention will be on the after parties. And the before and during parties being hosted around the city. Zombie Wolf says, the cat talking with his mouth full reminds me of one of my cats. She was a pretty dainty tortie. But she ate like a ravenous badger, always got food all over her face and the floor. It's a great description. We took care of a cat for a week when we couldn't figure out who its owner was. And when we were taking it back, it didn't like being in a cage. We had to put it in a cage, right, to get it back. And it was clever enough to know we were trying to put it in a cage, but it was such a pig that even though when I failed to put it in a cage, if I took more treats out and put it in my hand, it would come right back and go, and then I'd grab it again and try to put it in and be like, whoa, 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 I just came back for the snacks, man. And it never became cautious. Waldo asserted. Well then. I'm off to find some drunken snobs to embarrass. Mr. Tibbles said, jumping up on the counter and sweeping his long ebony tail with an involuntary twitch that knocked the coffee and creamer down to shatter over the floor. Waldo began to swear, but Mr. Tibbles was out the window. He considered apologizing, but didn't want to interrupt his owner's thoughts. So he just carried on towards the thrum of drums and the bright rainbow of Mardi Gras. Okay. His first stop. Jump Story says, I love king cake. I've heard of king cake. I've never had it. And I guess I couldn't now, can I? GS says they eat a lot of crawfish, right? Cats love that. If we're setting it in New Orleans, I guess they would, yeah. GS says, if you find the baby, you'll be responsible for hosting the next Mardi Gras and providing the king cake. Oh, cool. It's a dream for the people who cook everything. That's probably why it exists. Okay. It was a seasonal event. Okay. So his first startup was a morning garden party. And now we roll to find out the character involved, at least one of them. So I'm going to roll. It is an old money noble. So this is a dinner party. They're going to be a part of the Scandalous Info. Garden party with the old money noble. What's his name, chat? What's a comically old money noble? See, what you need to do, Jump Store, is make the cake out of nothing but babies. I meant the plastic babies, but I realized the way I phrased that sounds much worse. That's not what I meant. Sorry if I disturbed anyone. Habsburgs. I don't think I spelled it right. It doesn't matter. It's a fake story. Sir Wellington Habsburg. The 15th. He was a man of 5'4". There you go. A concession for my American viewers. He was a man of 5 foot 4 inches who stood a whopping 6 feet tall, were he fully dressed. He said this disparity was merely an effect of how the suit, properly made, straightened the back. But Mr. Tibbles had tracked down the what's their name? People who make shoes. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Why is my brain blocking this? Cobbler, thank you. Mr. Tibbles had tracked down the cobbler and watched him make Wellington's pumps and high heels firsthand. Despite that story, Sir Habsburg maintained his insistence that it was merely posture. Which he said, my town still had a cobbler until maybe 10 years ago. I think my town has a cobbler, but I don't think it has a cobbler in the sense that they'll build you a shoe from scratch. They like repair boots and things like that. Tammy Morelli says, has anyone here been to Mardi Gras? I have not. His insistence that it was merely posture. For this was the sort of man he was. Mr. Tibbles started at his garden party because he knew. Where do you think the cat should hide while he observes this garden party? Uncle Kitty says cobblers are almost non-existent in Ohio. Now, I don't really know that much about the various American states, but my impression is that there isn't much in Ohio, period. Is that accurate? Or is it something about just the sales patterns? Under the food table. Oh, in a purse. Okay. Can come in a purse. Sneak in a purse and then be under the food table. That's a good one. Dumbstore says, one of my supervisors quit to be a boot cobbler. Good on them. He did, however, have a great distaste for animals. So Mr. Tibbles had to wait for an arriving couple to get into an argument about the appropriate titles to give to the pronouncer. This opening was an arriving couple that got into an argument about the appropriate titles to give to the pronouncer at the garden party. The woman in the group, in the couple, had an elaborate handbag decorated with rare fire-colored feathers that reached in all directions. Well, they argued. Tibbles pawed out her wallet and keys. Glasses and other non-essentials. Then filled the void with his own loaf of a body. Uncle Kitty says, this is speaking about Ohio, we have some really good food in bookstores. That's all you need. From there, he was able to dart around to the cover of the food table. Uncle Kitty says, dexterous cat, that Tibbles, indeed. We have one called The Loft. It has 32 rooms and requires a map to navigate. Wow. Is it one of those like clean, proper ones, or is it one of those ones that's like a bunch of misshapen used books are falling out of the shelves? Because I've had a couple of, I've been to a lot of bookstores, obviously, and those ones that the books are like half stacked on the floor, those are always my favorite ones. I always find the most there. Okay, now, why is it so scandalous? Well, what happened there? Now we roll our d6 on this table for the social gatherings. Someone was attacked. Okay, so now chat, I realize we're an hour in. This took me a little longer to get going than I anticipated. We now have all the information for our first lead. Can't be the cat. Cat can't cause their own stories. But we're at a breakfast in a garden party on Mardi Gras at an old money noble's house who's an insecure man who wears pumps. and someone at his party was attacked. Why? What's the situation here? What are we seeing? If you don't know the whole situation, just give me some features or people that were involved. Obviously, the sillier and pettier, the better. But now this is where the brainstorming comes in. Zombie Wolf says a failed cask of Amontillado attempt. Amontillado. Do I know what that is? Oh, the Edgar Allan Poe thing? It's like carnival time. Oh, yeah. Very, very, I don't think I've actually read that story, to be honest. But it's very Edgar Allan Poe. I have read Edgar Allan Poe. To want to bury someone alive. I don't think he would be able to see that from under the food table, though. It's a good pull, though. It is Mardi Gras and all that, or Carnival, anyways. Somebody put a lobster down someone's dress. Okay. Or at least that's their perception of it. Zombie Wolf says, Rory must now take back your I love literature card. I don't know. I run around weird corners of what I read. There's lots of like considered essential reading that I haven't read or I've only read part of. Uncle Kitty says the nobleman confronted his gardener, accusing him of gaslighting him by moving all the furniture at night, and when he was asked why does he think that, the gardener replies, because he caught me doing it. I like the idea of the gardener. I think I can use that. I should say, actually, Zombie Wolf, now I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of literature I don't like. There's some I respect, but especially like the newer we get. I understand the postmodern influence on, and I philosophically I think I do land in many ways to like Baudrillard and stuff like that. I'm comfortable with postmodernism, but I think it gets to be a little navel-gazing and a little less narrative, and that's where it loses me. I think that's probably why I read a lot of old folklore, because it is very story-forward. I like the idea of the nobleman and the gardener being the one. I like it because it is a reason. It is something that could be observed. I'm just trying to think what would be scandalous. What would people want to pick up a newspaper and read? How about this? It wasn't long before the fickle... the hell was his name? Wellington? The fickle Wellington... Why is that capitalized like it's a title? The fickle Wellington had lost his temper and made a scene. Specifically, Mr. Tibbles watched him whip silk roses back and forth across the head of his retreating gardener. The gardener, as Tibbles would overhear later, had trouble with a fungus on the year's roses, which I guess are blooming in March by this count. I didn't really think this out. Had trouble with a fungus on that year's roses. And had been told to replace them with silk flowers instead. However, it seems Miss Bennington was overheard by Wellington as seeing this silk flower arrangement as a sign that the Habsburg blood grows bluer with every failing generation. Mr. Tibbles knew better than to risk being caught when the old stuff and the old man was in such a tizzy. So he darted off to his next lead. Okay. Everyone voted for affairs. So, where's affairs? Scandalous affair rumor. So, this is going to require me to roll 3 d6s because we need to know who is involved, what the nature of the affair is, and why it's scandalous. This is a successful businessman. I'll also accept, obviously, a successful businesswoman or business person. If you folks have strong feelings about that one way or another, what would be good for the story? Whoop. So we don't have something. This lead was about the strange early lunches of who's this businessman? Or woman or person. And what are they in the business of? Like, what's their name and what is their business? Is what I'm asking, I suppose. What is like an old timey? I mean, the import stuff. Maybe like imports fruit. Famed fruit importer. fruit and foreign seasoning. Foreign herbs? Foreign spice. Priscilla Getcher. Okay, Priscilla Getcher. The businesswoman. Of the district. Zombie Wolf says, runs nightclubs but moonlights as an organized crime boss. That's a good prompt. I got it just slightly too late. But I think we can still work that in somewhere. Okay. Now, there's scandalous affair rumors. Roll the d6. 5. Where were the pair found? In a dark, secluded alley. And why is it so scandalous? It's another 5. Which is an unexpected pairing. Oh, well, I know exactly what we can do, and we can use zombie wolves in that one. Of course, anybody who knew anything about the city knew that Priscilla was hardly making her fortune by legal means. Her associations with smuggling and the dreary or the dangerous underworld were practically open secrets. Yet, she was never caught. Even when her place was raided. Every time, a step ahead of the cops. Mr. Tibbles had a lead. That she took a secret meeting every day in the down at a lunch spot in the grim corners of town. Yet, when he had checked there yesterday, he found she was not in the cafe her schedule said she would be, for he pawed it from a crack in her window. It was then sheer luck that when he went to check today, though Priscilla was not in the cafe, he followed the suggestive whispers and moans to a dark alley around the back, where he found her in passionate embrace with the chief of police. With a meow, mostly out of shock, Mr. Tibbles trotted on, as if he were a cat and had no interest in such scandal. Today was proving a productive one. All right. I would like to do a third one, but I don't know if I have the energy to hold up for that. So I'm gonna kind of cut to returning, and then we'll do a brief little article. The rest of the day provided scenes of debauchery and embarrassment that would have delighted Waldo on any regular day. But here on Mardi Gras, Mr. Tibbles knew to pitch only the best two stories he had found. Well, Waldo said, rolling up a cigarette of dusty tobacco. What did we find on this day of celebration, my dear little Tibbs? The first, Mr. Tibbles said with a puffed chest that begged for scritches. Was Wellington, Wales, unworried worker. The old fart put out. Everyone is mad about the rolling of the cigarette around the cat. It's more a mark of the era that I'm going for here. Was Wellington Wales unworried worker? The old fart put out fake flowers, then blamed the help. Here, I will help you guys, since this is what you're hung up on. Waldo stood and walked out to his porch overlooking the street filled with colored paper and folks sweeping it. He lit his cigarette and pondered the story. And this is the mechanic where we find out if he's gonna take it. So on a 1, 2, 3, your human thinks it's not true. On a 4, 5, 6, your human believes it. It's a 6, they believe it. Yeah, that tracks. He is a temperamental old fool. Anything else? Mr. Tibbles looked up from cleaning his gentleman's area, then said, "Aye, but I'm not sure you'll buy it." Zombie Wolf says, M. Night Shyamalan twist ending. The cat can't actually talk to their owner, and it was just the cat thinking he was helping all along. Or, you know, there is no cat or whatever. I do like those comics, those redos of Garfield, that address the fact that officially Garfield cannot talk to John. That is the official line on those. But there's ones that are just kind of nuts if that's not the case. And so what they do is they remove Garfield's dialogue. And it just really portrays what a complete weirdo he is, his owner is. Okay, let's see if they buy the story of the town gangster and the chief of police. I'm not going to tell you yet. It's Mardi Gras. Ibbles. Oh yeah, there's also the ones where Garfield just isn't there. Jumpstore says, yeah, that's those ones are good too. It's Mardi Gras, Ibbles. Anything is possible. Priscilla is having an affair with the chief of police. Mr. Tibbles said with a smug look on his fuzzy cheeks. Oh. Waldo said, tapping ash from his cigarette. Okay, chat. It won't be very long, but what article should we actually write? Should we write the one about Wellington beating up his worker with a silk flowers, or because our person believed us, do you want to write the one about the affair? I'll try to do it as like a short little snippet, because I can feel my lungs are drying out. Affair, crime doesn't pay. Okay, so now we need to dig deep on our salacious side. What are some sentences that we need to have in this brief little article about this affair? Well, my dear Tibby, Ibby, do. I think we have our cover. Waldo collected the relevant info, including the schedule, then sat down and wrote into the night. Hot off the presses in the morning, read the following. Enemies to lovers. Perfect. That's totally perfect. Enemies to lovers. Priscilla what's like the kind of euphemistic language they used? Because they wouldn't say affair or anything too directly sexual or anything like that, but they would have these words for it. Priscilla caught smooching dalliance is a good one. Yeah. Seen cohorting with is as well. I'm going to use that one later. Uncle Kitty, that's a good one. Priscilla in dalliance with Chief of Police, according to recent rumors. Having a dalliance? Occurs to me I don't use this word enough to know. Oh, that's a great one, Jumpster. I gotta definitely use that. caught in dalliance. What is the proper use of this in a sentence? I'm looking this up. How do I use this as a verb? There's no way, is there? So it's got to be having a dalliance. No, it's a noun. Okay. It's a forbidden dance of love. That's... You guys are all over this. Priscilla caught having a dalliance with the chief of police, according to recent rumors. What happens when the Lord of Justice, keeper of public trust, finds himself entangled in passion? Come on. Don't die on me now. There we go. Entangled in passionate... In passion, sure. With the Queen of the Night, according to our sources. Each day behind the blue collar cafe coffee hole. The famed Priscilla, the hell was her name? Getchert? Getcher, that's right. The famed Priscilla Getcher and the noble... We never gave this chief of a police a name. Makes her sound like a vampire. That's true. But I think they like that high drama. Passionate thralls. That's a good one. And the supposedly noble chief. He doesn't need one, true. Were caught in partial disrobe and stained by fine red lipstick. There's a sentence I wanted to use. I'm trying to remember where it was. Horace Beaumont is a good name. Is it true love? Or has the keeper of public peace been manipulated by the wiles of the town's wealthiest femme fatale? Locals familiar with the situation. Wonder if perhaps this is why the raids of last month produced less evidence than expected concerning the shady dealings, I guess I should say the allegedly shady dealings of Priscilla. True love or Black Widow? You decide, reader. We just report the facts. Vixen, that's a good one. By the town's wealthiest vixen. Faints and no one catches you. Genera says gas practically pornographic. Where are my smelling salts? Okay. Let's read back my story and the article we wrote. Actually, if I'm gonna read, I'm gonna have a good drink of water here. If you're coming to this part of the show, it's because you just want to know what we came up with over the last hour and a half. What we did was we played a game called A Perfectly Scandalous Solo Journaling RPG called Cats Know Things. The premise of which we are a cat who collects information for our owner to write for a social paper, social column, but more commonly known as basically a tabloid, but tied to a specific district. The game itself is mostly just rolling charts where we get prompts about who's involved and what happens and so on. I won't go through all of that again, but through that we found a couple of prompts. You then pitch it to your owner, and we wrote one article out of one of them in the end that is, in my opinion, quite funny. So this playthrough was called Scooping Biscuits and Gossip. A Cats Know Things playthrough. Our name is Mr. Tibbles, Tibbs, Tit, Ibbles, Tibby Bums, Tibmeister, and a few others, although not all of them played in. We are a Bombay cat. If you don't know what that looks like, it's a black cat with sort of yellow eyes. Our owner's name is Waldo Figwater. I didn't end up using these other wonderful cat names, and I wish I had. The morning was late to light the day so far as Mr. Tibbles was concerned, for he was awake, yet the dawn had not fully broken. This delay in the cosmic calendar of the galaxy was delaying his breakfast as well, because of course his owner, Waldo Figwater, did not wake up until the sun had at least mostly risen. Mr. Tibbles, with 3 elegant leaps that stirred a few pots drying on the counter, nosed through the crack in the window and bellowed out a nasal, wailing cry. That insisted that the sun increase its pace at which it was rising. For the neighbors, this was merely the rasping and irritating cries of a slightly portly black cat. However, for Waldo, who for reasons neither Tibbles nor he ever quite understood, the yowling of his cat was as clear as the street marketers shouting out their morning deals below. Hey, son, I'm hungry. Pick up the pace and rise, Waldo heard Mr. Tibbles cry. Waldo knew better than to argue with Mr. Tibbles on this point. After all, his job at the Gossiping Gnome, a social paper for his district, was dependent on the information Mr. Tibbles could feed him by spying the upper class from the windowsills. So in a groggy sway, Waldo scooped a pungent paste of meat into the bowl beside Mr. Tibbles, who was awaiting with round golden eyes, nearly in tears for the patience he had had to muster that morning in waiting for his meal. "There you are, Tibby Bums. Eat up, you little fluff." Waldo rasped through his dry throat and turned to make his morning coffee. "Well, Mr. Tibbles, probably going to be a busy day for you." With a smacking wet mouth full of food, Mr. Tibbles responded, "How's that?" "Remember, they are doing a Mardi Gras celebration this year, and while the town's attention will be on the extravagant parade," Mr. Tibbles cut in, licking food from his paw. "Our attention will be on the after parties, and the before and during parties, being hosted around the city," Waldo asserted. "Well then, I'm off to find some drunken snobs to embarrass," Mr. Tibbles said, and jumping up on the counter, with a sweep of his long ebony tail, in an involuntary twitch, he knocked the coffee and creamer down to shatter over the floor. Waldo began to swear, but Mr. Tibbles was already out the window. He considered apologizing to his owner, but did not want to interrupt his owner's thoughts, so he just carried on towards the thrum of drums and bright rainbow of Mardi Gras celebrations. His first stop was a morning garden party with the old money noble, Sir Wellington Habsburger the 15th. He was a man of 5'4", who stood a whopping 6 feet tall where he fully dressed. He said this disparity was merely an effect of how the suit, properly made, straightened the back. But Mr. Tibbles had tracked down the cobbler and watched that cobbler make Wellington's pumps and high heels firsthand, though they were well disguised to be normal-looking shoes. And despite that story, despite the publishing of the story about Habsburg's cobbler, Sir Habsburg to that day had maintained his insistence that it was nothing to do with fancy shoes. It was merely posture, for this was the sort of man that Sir Habsburg was. Mr. Tibbles started at his garden party exactly because he knew the man was always good for those juicy scandals that only delusional old nobles could manifest. Sir Wellington did, however, have a great distaste for animals, so Mr. Tibbles had to wait for an opening to smuggle himself into the garden party. This opening was an arriving couple that got into an argument about the appropriate titles to give to the pronouncer at the garden party when they would enter. The woman in the couple had an elaborate handbag decorated with rare, fire-colored feathers that reached in all directions, and while they argued, Tibbles pawed out her wallet and her keys and glasses and some other things he regarded as non-essential, then filled the void of her purse with his own loaf of a body. From there, he was able to dart around to the cover of the food table once he passed the door. It wasn't long before the fickle Sir Wellington, had lost his temper and made a scene. Specifically, Mr. Tibbles watched him whip silk roses back and forth across the head of his retreating gardener in the middle of his luncheon. The gardener, as Tibbles would overhear later, had trouble with a fungus on that year's roses and had been told to replace what was meant to be a centerpiece of roses with silk roses instead. However, it seems Miss Bennington was overheard by Sir Wellington upon seeing this silk flower arrangement, and it was said that Miss Bennington said that this was a sign that the Habsburg blood grows bluer with every one of its failing generations. Well, that, of course, threw Sir Habsburg into a rage, but he was unable to turn it against someone of such status as Miss Bennington, and so instead the gardener found the whip of the flowers he was told to place. Now, Mr. Tibbles knew better than to risk being caught when the old man was in such a tizzy, so he darted off to his next lead. This lead was about the strange early lunches of the famed fruit and foreign spice importer Priscilla Getcher, the businesswoman of the district. Of course, anybody who knew about the city knew that Priscilla was hardly making her fortune by fully legal means. Her associations with smuggling and the dangerous underworld were practically open secrets in the right circles. Yet she was never caught, even when her place was raided. Every time a step ahead of the cops, and Mr. Tibbles had a lead that she took a secret meeting every day down at a lunch spot in the grim corners of the Port District. Yet, when he had checked there yesterday, he had found that she was not in the cafe her schedule specifically said she would be, for he had pawed her schedule through a crack in the window, and that's how he knew about this. It was then sheer luck that when he went to check today, though he once again found Priscilla was not in the cafe, he happened to follow suggestive whispers and moans that were coming from a dark alley around the back, and it was there he found her, Priscilla Getcher, Queen of the Underworld, in a passionate embrace with the Chief of Police. With a meow, mostly out of shock, Mr. Tibbles trotted out, as if he were just another cat seeking a mouse, with no interest in the phenomenal scandal unfolding before him. Today was proving a productive one, but then Mardi Gras usually was. The rest of that day provided many scenes of debauchery and embarrassment that would have delighted Waldo on any regular day, but here on Mardi Gras, Mr. Tibbles knew to pitch his owner only the best 2 stories he found, and he knew which ones those were. Well, Waldo said, rolling up a cigarette of dusty tobacco. What did we find on this day of celebration, my dear little Tib-Tibs? The first, Mr. Tibbles said with a puffed chest that begged for scritches, was Wellington, Wales, unworried worker. The old fart put out fake flowers, then blamed the help. Waldo stood and walked out to his porch overlooking the street, filled now with colored paper and folks sweeping it up. He lit his cigarette and pondered this pitch for a story. Yes, that tracks. He is a temperamental old fool. Anything else? Mr. Tibbles looked up from cleaning his gentleman's area and then said, Aye, but I'm not sure you'll buy it. It's Mardi Gras, Ibbles. Anything is possible. Priscilla is having an affair with the Chief of Police, Mr. Tibbles said with a smug look on his fuzzy cheeks. Oh, Waldo said, tapping ash from his cigarette. Well, dear Tibby-ibby-doo, I think we have our cover. And Waldo collected the relevant info from his cat, including the schedule, and then sat down and wrote this article well into the night. Hot off the presses in the morning read the following. Enemies to lovers. Priscilla caught having a dalliance with the Chief of Police, according to recent rumors. What happens when the Lord of Justice, keeper of public trust, finds himself entangled in passionate thralls with the Queen of the Night? According to our sources, each day behind the blue-collar cafe coffee hole in the Port District, the famed Priscilla Getcher and the supposedly noble chief were caught in partial disrobe and stained by fine red lipstick across both their cheeks. Is it true love? Or has the keeper of public peace been manipulated by the wiles of the town's wealthiest vixen? Locals familiar with the situation wonder if perhaps this is why the raids of last month produced less evidence than expected concerning the allegedly shading deals of Priscilla. True love or Black Widow? You decide, reader. We just report the facts. One thing to add here. It was their best-selling paper to date. GS says cleaning is gentleman's area. Well said. Zombie Wolf says I didn't even catch that, and GS says well done, Rory. Yeah, Witcher says big A cab vibes. Lol. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, that was a longer one, but then I feel like I had missed a few, so I probably owed a few. I am going to go feed my cat because I was meant to feed him 20 minutes ago, and he is, I don't think you can hear him, but he is making noise about it. So I won't delay too much on the departure here, but thank you very much, everybody, for the wonderful suggestions and for keeping me moving towards what I think was a lovely and funny end. Again, if you guys want to try this game, Cats Know Things, it's on itch.io. I think it's $5 just for the game, but if you want, you can buy it as a part of Solo But Not Alone 4, which is a bundle for $10. You get like 150 games, and I do recommend it. Jumpstore says, thanks for the stream, Rory. Please drink some more tea and get some rest. Indeed, I will. I promise that. Thank you for watching, Jumpstore. Uncle Kitty says, oh, you're in trouble. Yes, I'm sure I will get some petty response from him about that. Tammy says, well, thank you for the wonderful time, Rory and all. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Drink some hot honey and lemon tea. I will indeed. Get rest, Rory. Sweet dreams all. Thank you, Tammy. Witchery says, thanks for the streams, Rory. Have a good night. Feel better or else. Oh, God. If you don't get healthy, you'll get a lot less healthy real fast. Thank you for the sentiment, Witchery. Well, Zombie Wolf says, fun times, Rory. Thanks, and I hope you sound even better next week. So do I. It'd be nice to not sound slightly gross. Uncle Kitty says, good night to all. See you all next week. Try some rooibos teas. Rooibos is tasty. And thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I know Janera probably had to go back to work, but thank you, Janera, for coming by, and GS, and all the rest who I've just read off. Thank you very much. And as I always say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.